Good morning to all the listeners of Hot Topic and Fresh News. Today on the 17th day of December, the year 2023, we have significant news to cover from Texas. Joel Pellet, a resident of Laredo, has been found guilty of murdering his wife, Maria Muñoz. Muñoz was found dead in her home in September 2020. Initially, it was believed she overdosed on clonazepam, a prescribed medication. But autopsy reports unveiled a lethal cocktail of 7 different drugs in her system, propofol being one. Muñoz, a dedicated mother and a committed student working towards becoming a nurse, had a tumultuous marriage. It was discovered that Pellet was involved in an extramarital affair with a coworker, Janet Arredondo. On the night before Muñoz's death, a heated argument ensued between the couple, after which Muñoz had sent a text message to her friend asking for prayers as she was planning to have a serious conversation with Pellet. The prosecution revealed that later that night, Pellet had intentionally injected Muñoz with a lethal dose of propofol, leading to her death. Pellet's defense argued that Muñoz's death was accidental and a result of the mixed medication. Nevertheless, the jury found Pellet guilty of the murder and evidence tampering, sentencing him to life imprisonment. This marks the end of a heart-wrenching saga in Texas, providing some solace to Muñoz's family and friends. Detailed analysis and discussion on this case coming up in our next segment. Good morning, dear listeners of Hot Topic and Fresh News. You're here with your host, Emily.
And this is David Newstock, ready to get into today's top stories.
As always, we're here, same time, same place, every day, bringing the latest and most pressing news right to you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on our daily news roundup. All right, let's dive straight into the hot topics.
Can you shed more light on the circumstances surrounding Maria's death on that fateful night?
On the 22nd of September 2020, a police officer, Gregorio de la Cruz, arrived at Maria's house following a distress call. He found Joel Pellet, Maria's husband, dressed in surgical scrubs and attempting to resuscitate her through CPR.
How did Pellet explain Maria's condition?
Pellet told the officer that Maria might have taken some pills, specifically clonazepam, a drug prescribed not to Maria, but to him. He also mentioned that Maria had been struggling with depression lately.
What about the children? Where were they during all of this?
Pellet informed the officer that their 2 sons were in separate bedrooms, seemingly oblivious to the dire situation. Maria was a wonderful mother who loved her kids dearly. She was dedicated and caring.
What can you tell us about Maria's aspirations and life outside her family?
Maria had dreams beyond her role as a mother. She was learning to play the piano and was actively studying to get her nursing license in the U.S., having been a nurse in Puerto Rico. A promising life tragically cut short.
Let's talk more about Joel Pellet. What was his background and profession?
Pellet, 11 years older than Maria, was also from Puerto Rico where they first met. He was a nursing student, and after they got married, they moved to Laredo, Texas, where Pellet secured a well-paying position as a nurse anesthetist, also known as a Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist, or CRNA.
What can you tell us about his professional demeanor and dedication?
Tina Dorez, a co-worker at Doctors Hospital in Laredo, describes Pellet as a hardworking and intelligent colleague, very dedicated to his work and family, often sharing stories and photos of Maria and their son Alejandro.
And what happened on the morning Maria was declared dead?
Maria Muñoz was declared dead at 3:58 a.m., less than 3 hours after the 911 call. At this point, the police started questioning Pellet about the circumstances leading up to Maria's death.
What were the suspicious activities noted by the investigators?
Pellet had initially handed over a container of prescription pills, which he later retrieved when De La Cruz was preoccupied. However, De La Cruz noticed the container was missing and asked for it again. Pellet's sudden change in behavior raised suspicion. There was also something about his appearance that aroused investigators' doubts.
Why did Officer De La Cruz suspect Pellet might be under the influence of drugs?
De La Cruz noticed that Pellet was heavily sweating, much more than what seemed normal given the circumstances. It was more than De La Cruz himself, who was in full gear, was sweating. This led him to believe that Pellet might have used drugs.
What was the immediate response of law enforcement when Maria was declared dead?
The immediate response was to take the children out of the house and start a death investigation. Sergeant Luis Mata, the lead investigator, wasn't initially sure whether Maria's death was a suicide, an accidental overdose, or if Pellet was involved.
What was the approach to investigate the house?
Mata needed to search the house, but for that, he required Pellet's permission. Initially, Pellet resisted, claiming he valued his privacy. However, Mata explained that without consent, he'd need to apply for a search warrant. Eventually, Pellet gave consent to the search.
And what happened when Pellet was taken to the police station?
In the police interview room, Pellet was recorded hitting walls and moving furniture, which was loud enough to scare people down the hall in the dispatch room. The intensity of his actions was concerning for law enforcement.
What was Pellet's initial reaction when asked for permission to search his house?
Well, Pellet initially resisted the search, citing his privacy. However, once Sergeant Mata explained the need for a search warrant if he didn't consent, Pellet agreed to allow the search.
What can you tell us about his behavior at the police station?
Pellet's behavior was erratic. While alone in the interview room, he was recorded moving furniture and hitting walls. This behavior was so intense that it alarmed some of the people in the dispatch room down the hall. Speaking of walls, can you believe the restoration work they're doing on the old City Hall building? I heard they found some original 19th century brickwork behind the drywall during the renovations.
That's interesting for sure, but let's stay focused on the case at hand.
Of course, I apologize for the digression. Let's return to discussing the events surrounding Maria Muñoz's tragic death and the subsequent investigation.
What did Pellet claim he gave to Maria?
Pellet stated to Mata that he had given Maria a container of the drug clonazepam, which was prescribed to him. However, he couldn't recall how many pills were in the container before giving it to her.
What else was peculiar about Pellet's account of the night?
Pellet claimed that he had taken a shower and thought Maria was merely sleeping, but within 10 minutes, she was unresponsive. Mata found this account suspicious, especially considering the shower was completely dry, contrary to what you would expect after someone has just taken a shower.
Was there any other unusual evidence found at the home?
Yes, investigators found syringes and IV equipment in a medical bag at the home, which is more commonly found in a medical setting. There was also a syringe wrapper on the floor and a needle catheter on the stairs, but Pellet couldn't explain their presence.
How did Pellet react when asked about the presence of syringes in the home?
Pellet responded that he didn't know why there were syringes in the home. Interestingly, he made a hand gesture and tapped his bicep, but the significance of this gesture is unclear at this time.
Can you explain why Pellet had the syringes at home?
Pellet admitted to Mata that the syringes were for his use, implying that he was using steroids. His coworker, Luis Ayala, had noticed changes in his physique and behavior, which were suggestive of steroid use.
What kind of changes did Ayala notice in Pellet's behavior?
Ayala pointed out that Pellet lost a lot of weight and then started gaining muscle, which could be attributed to the use of steroids. But he also noticed that Pellet was becoming more flirtatious and friendly with women.
What about Pellet's online presence? Did it reflect these changes?
Indeed, it did. Pellet started deleting photos of Maria from his social media profiles and posted pictures alone. He enjoyed showing off the wealth he was amassing as a high-demand nurse anesthetist.
What about Pellet's personal life? Did his behavior changes affect his relationship with his family?
Unfortunately, yes. While Maria was dealing with the birth of their second child, Pellet began pursuing another woman, a surgical nurse named Janet Arredondo. He even took her on vacations to Europe, which Maria found out about. This revelation led Maria into a deep depression, and she was prescribed medication.
How did Maria cope with all these changes?
Maria found solace in her daily journaling. She wrote about her feelings and her experiences, which provided a personal outlet for her emotions. Her entries give insight into her emotional state at the time, such as, "I don't want to be sad anymore."
Did Maria ever express hope for reconciliation with Pellet?
Yes, Maria's journal entries revealed that she was hopeful her faith could mend their 10-year marriage. She wrote, "Lord, this is a lot for me. All I really want to do is see change in him."
Did Pellet make any efforts to mend their relationship?
It did seem like it for a while. A few months after his trips with Janet, Pellet treated Maria to a lavish vacation in Las Vegas. He even bought her a couple of Louis Vuitton items. But this second chance at their marriage didn't last.
What happened after the Vegas trip?
Pellet couldn't leave Janet. He admitted to Sagat Mata that he had been with Janet for 2 years and Maria had known for a while. In fact, he had moved in with Janet 5 months before Maria's death.
How did Janet react when she found out about Maria's death?
Janet was shocked when Mata told her about Maria's death during their interview. She needed a moment to collect herself after hearing the news. She confirmed that Pellet was her boyfriend, but it's unclear at this point how much she knew about Pellet's marital status. As the police investigation unfolded, Janet Arredondo seemed genuinely surprised at the suggestion that Maria might have overdosed. She confirmed that she and Pellet had been dating for approximately 2 years and that she was aware of Maria's emotional state, but she was not aware of any drug use by Maria.
If Maria wasn't known to use drugs, where did the overdose theory originate?
The notion of an overdose was brought up by Pellet, who suggested that Maria might have overdosed on the drug clonazepam. However, when the autopsy was conducted, the medical examiner found no pill residue in Maria's stomach, which contradicts the overdose theory.
Then what did the autopsy reveal?
The report states Maria died from mixed drug intoxication. Yet there was an unusual finding, a tiny mark on Maria's right arm. It was precisely the type of mark one would get after receiving an intravenous injection, which raised suspicions.
Did the autopsy report include any other significant details?
The medical examiner ruled out suicide after conversing with Maria's friends and reading her journal. It's clear from Maria's writing that she was searching for answers and looking for a way forward, not planning to end her life. Her last entry was a poignant question: "What is it that I want?"
Was there any doubt regarding Maria's cause of death?
Yes, there were diverging opinions. Some believed it could have been an accidental overdose, but others suspected murder. Dr. John Hunsinger, an anesthesiologist and Pellet's former boss, was one of the first to voice his suspicions after hearing the autopsy results. He requested a detailed toxicology screening to ascertain which drugs had caused Maria's death.
What did Pellet have to say about all this?
Pellet firmly denied any involvement, stating that he did not inject Maria with anything.
What was the public reaction to Maria's death?
Maria's death was deeply mourned, with a large crowd of family and friends, including Joel Pellet, attending her funeral. Interestingly, Maria's friend, Yasmin Martinez, thought Pellet's grief seemed overly dramatic. This, coupled with his contentious actions at the scene, i.e. hiding the pill container, only fueled the investigative fire.
This story is eerily reminiscent of a case I covered early in my career, where the spouse was initially viewed as a grieving widower, only to be later revealed as the perpetrator. It's a sobering reminder that appearances can often be deceiving. You mentioned a needle catheter found at the scene. What are the implications of that?
This needle catheter, typically used for IVs, was found on the staircase. Combined with the small mark on Maria's arm, it raised questions about how the drugs ended up in her system. It's a crucial piece of evidence that doesn't align with the overdose theory.
Was the evidence conclusive enough to determine the cause of death?
The case was indeed complex. Even the medical examiner couldn't definitively say whether Maria's death was an accident or murder. It was confirmed that Maria had a dangerous mix of drugs in her bloodstream, but how they got there remains a mystery.
What about the relationship dynamics? Did the investigation reveal anything?
Yes, Maria's friends reported a confrontation at Janet Arredondo's house, with Maria issuing an ultimatum to Pellet. In response, Pellet unequivocally chose Janet. This confrontation escalated to the point where Pellet allegedly became violent, punching the windshield of the car.
So what were the law enforcement's next steps?
Authorities continued with their investigation, trying to piece together the circumstances of Maria's death. Given the complexity of the case and the frayed relationship dynamics, it was a formidable task.
What changed in the dynamics between Maria and Pellet before her death?
The relationship was clearly deteriorating. Maria sent a text message to Pellet about hiring a divorce lawyer. Pellet initially responded pragmatically, hoping for minimal lawyer involvement, but later sent an emotional email expressing his sadness and asking for a heart-to-heart conversation. They agreed to meet the night before Maria died.
Did Maria have any final communications with her friends?
Yes, Maria sent her friend Yasmin Martinez a message requesting prayers before her meeting with Pellet. Tragically, that would be her last message to Martinez, as Maria died early the next morning.
What did the toxicology report reveal about Maria's death?
The toxicology results were striking. Despite Pellet's claims that Maria might have overdosed on clonazepam, none was found in her system. However, 7 other drugs were detected, most of which are typically used during surgery, and one of them can only be administered with an IV.
What were the authorities' next steps after receiving the toxicology report?
The toxicology report, combined with the existing evidence, led the authorities to conclude that Pellet had murdered Maria. They promptly issued a warrant for his arrest. When officers arrived at Pellet's home to make the arrest, he seemingly knew why they were there and surrendered himself without any resistance. Following Pellet's smooth arrest, he was taken to the police station and booked. His former boss, anesthesiologist Dr. John Hunsinger, was shocked by the variety of medications found in Maria's system, particularly propofol.
That's a powerful anesthetic, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Propofol is typically used in hospitals, and it's not a drug you can find at your local pharmacy. It's usually injected by someone else with an IV and can cause someone to stop breathing if too much is administered.
If I remember correctly, propofol was the same drug involved in Michael Jackson's death, right?
That's correct. And in Maria's case, propofol was found in highly elevated levels in her system. Dr. Hunsinger stated that the level of propofol in Maria's body was the highest he had ever seen. His conclusion, this was death by propofol.
That suggests someone with medical knowledge was involved. Did the investigations reveal anything else along these lines?
During a second police interview, Pellet's girlfriend, Janet Arredondo, admitted that Pellet often brought various drugs home for his own recreational use, including ketamine, morphine, lidocaine, and fentanyl, among others. This admission further implicated Pellet and his involvement in Maria's death. The investigation escalated when Janet Arredondo confirmed that Pellet had brought propofol to her home. This led to a search warrant for her home and a deal offering her immunity from prosecution in exchange for more information. The prosecution team, led by Maricela Hakaman, believes Pellet methodically planned Maria's murder and that Maria endured emotional abuse in the months leading up to her death.
Emotional abuse. I've never really contemplated the destructive power of such abuse in the context of a case like this.
It is indeed powerful. The prosecution argues that Maria was powerless in her relationship with Pellet, which is a classic characteristic of emotional abuse. Evidence of this abuse was found in Maria's personal journals and a secretly recorded video where Maria is seen trying to understand Pellet's expectations of their marriage.
It's haunting to think that she felt compelled to record their conversations. What evidence did these recordings provide?
The recordings provided a glimpse into the dynamics of their relationship, revealing Maria's anguish and desperation. In her journals, Maria wrote about the pain her husband was causing her. These entries, along with the video, gave the prosecution a compelling case of emotional abuse.
It's chilling to think that such a personal struggle was happening beneath the surface. This really underscores the importance of recognizing and addressing emotional abuse in relationships. This case keeps taking twists and turns. What's the latest development?
In her second interview with police, Janet Arredondo revealed that on the night Maria died, Pellet went to have a conversation with her and then injected her with medication to calm her down.
That's quite revealing. Do we know what happened next?
The prosecution believes Pellet added several sedatives to Maria's coffee, causing her to lose consciousness. Following that, they suspect Pellet injected Maria with a lethal dose of propofol.
And did he call for help right away?
According to Assistant District Attorney Ana Karen Garza, Pellet deliberately delayed calling 911, possibly until he was sure Maria was dead, to ensure that no one could revive her.
Do we know if any evidence was tampered with?
Arredondo stated that Pellet admitted to disposing of some of the medical equipment he used to inject Maria before the first responders arrived. It's a chilling account, to say the least. 2.5 years after Maria's death, her husband finally stood trial for her murder. The prosecution presented 15 witnesses to fortify their case, including Janet Arredondo, who had previously shared critical information with the police.
And what was the defense's counter-argument?
Pellet's defense admitted that he injected his wife, but argued that he was trying to save her, not kill her. They alleged Maria was deeply depressed and had been abusing drugs and alcohol.
That's quite a twist. What evidence did they present to support this claim?
They pointed to the toxicology report and stated that Pellet not only gave Maria medication to calm her down, but also administered Narcan, a drug used to reverse opioid overdoses, when he found her unconscious. Wow. I can't help but be amazed at the rapidly changing world of hot-off-the-press news. Such revelations, such controversies, such breaking headlines. It's quite something, isn't it, folks? Are you as wrapped up in these updates as we are? How do you see this case unfolding? Thanks a ton for tuning in, and we look forward to your thoughts as we continue to delve deeper into this case.
What happened next in the courtroom drama?
Prosecutors argued that Narcan, the drug used to reverse opioid overdoses, isn't a reversal agent for propofol. It's the propofol they claim that ultimately caused Maria's heart to stop.
Did the defense ever explain how the propofol entered Maria's system?
The defense never offered an explanation for that. However, the prosecution maintained that the amount of medication found in Maria's system was enough to survive 2 major surgeries and couldn't have been accidental.
So, what was the motive behind this alleged murder?
The prosecution argued that Pellet's motive was financial gain. They suggested he didn't want to pay for a divorce or split his assets, hence the murder.
What was the outcome of the trial?
After 8 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than an hour. They found Pellet guilty of murdering his wife Maria and tampering with the evidence. He was sentenced to life in prison.
That's quite a verdict. What was the reaction in the medical community?
Many members of the medical community attended the trial. One of Pellet's former colleagues, Tina Dors, suggested that Pellet may have thought he was smarter than everyone else and could outsmart them, leading to his downfall. Maria's friend, Angela Montoya, painted a picture of a woman who loved her husband deeply, even to her detriment. This is a tragic ending for a family that Maria fought so hard to keep together.
What do Maria's children and other family members have to say about this?
Maria's team asserted that the most important witness at the trial was Maria herself. They believe her journals showed her emotional journey and her desire for a fulfilling life. As for her children, they're currently living with Joel Pellet's mother.
This is indeed a tragic ending, and it seems Maria's legacy lives on in her journals and the memories of her loved ones.
That's correct. In the face of such a tragic story, Maria's strength and spirit continue to shine through her words. We felt her strong energy even after her tragic demise, and it is that energy that gives us strength to seek and spread the truth. It's a wrap for today on Hot Topic and Fresh News. We delved into a compelling courtroom drama, and we appreciate you, our listeners, for being with us throughout. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you'll always be the first to know when we upload a new episode. Your support means everything to us. Share our podcast with your friends and family on all your social platforms, and if you have any thoughts or questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment.
And remember, we're here every day, supplying you with the most relevant news analysis. So why not make us a part of your daily routine? Plus, we've got some intriguing topics lined up. You won't want to miss it.
Thanks again for joining us today. We're already looking forward to our next episode.
Absolutely. And in the words of our favorite catchphrase, both, stay in the loop, keep your eyes on the news, our channel's content will amuse.